Alright, welcome to TREV Ministries, where truth is revealed, explained, and visualized. This is T-Reacts, where you send it, I react to it, we discuss it. The Bible has a final say on it, and that's it. Let's get right into our video that we're going to react to. Should you get married young? This was sent to me again in the community tab. Again, if you can't see it, most likely it's because you're not subscribed. So I'd encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate it. Again, for those that I have reacted to, it means that I have already reacted to your video, and I will be uploading it as soon as possible. Right? So this one, should you get married young? This is a video that I'm gonna be watching now. So it's a good question. Let's see where this discussion goes. Yeah, let's pray for us to begin. Dear Father, as we discuss this all-important topic of marriage, I pray that that your wisdom would prevail here, that the Bible would have the final say. I pray that your name would be glorified in this video, that someone would receive what the Bible has to say about marriage and whether we should marry young, depending on our circumstance. I pray that the discussion would be fruitful and beneficial. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Amen. All right, let's get right into it. Let's see where this goes.
Should you get married young? Well, I got married at 19. Now, I'm not telling you that's what you should do. I'm just saying that's what I did. But I will tell you this. A lot of the reasons people gave me for why I shouldn't get married young were utter and complete garbage. I mean, just complete intellectual nonsense. Because when I let people know that at 19 I was about to propose to my girlfriend, a lot of people said I was crazy. We were too poor. We were too young. We didn't have a clue about what we really wanted. I was in the army and was going to travel. I needed to see the world and have some adventures before I settled down. All of these things were provided to me as evidence for why we shouldn't get married. And to give you an idea of just how dedicated certain people were to this proposition, we actually found out later that we had a couple of couples that were a little bit farther down the path than we were, who we invited to our wedding. And they took bets on our wedding at how long we would last. So here's the first question. If someone's going to tell you you're too young, well, then I guess the real question would be, great, what's the appropriate age? Now, obviously, there are ages that are too young to get married. But if all the people telling you you're too young are insistent that you're too young, you have every right to ask them, great, what's the proper age? And most time what you're going to find out is they don't have one, or you're going to get as many answers as you have people that you ask the question to. And maybe the reason why they don't have a good answer to the question is because it's not really about age as much as it is maturity. And the reality is this: there are a lot of people that shouldn't get married young, not because they're young, but because they're immature. By the same token, we all know people who are perfectly within the socially acceptable marrying age who also shouldn't get married because they lack maturity.
Right. I don't know if he's gonna touch on that, but let's continue, and if he goes to something else, then I will say what I want to say on that.
Case in point, the very couples that we invited to our wedding that were betting against us, well, we're still married and they're divorced. Now, one of the other common things you will hear as a reason for why you shouldn't get married is because don't you want to go...
Okay, all right. So before you get to that point, so I wanted to talk about maturity. I think maturity is a valuable point. What do we mean when we say maturity? When I think of maturity, I believe that there's a level of maturity for every aspect of your life. That's my belief. Because there's a level of maturity for every aspect of your life, then it's dangerous to call someone mature because they're mature about one aspect of their life. You understand what I'm saying? So case in point, I'm saying, okay, I was talking to this girl says she's mature. Why is she mature? Because she handles her responsibilities well, so she knows how to hold her house down, she cooks, she can clean, she can take care of herself. Okay, great. So you are mature in terms of, that's that aspect of your life, home life, chores, that kind of thing. But let's say, and that, by the way, this is an illustration, I'm not referring to anyone specifically, but let's say that girl, okay, she's mature in handling home responsibilities, but when she is angry, she goes into a temper tantrum. So in home responsibilities, she is mature, but she's emotionally immature. let's say that, okay, I meet another girl, and this girl, she's emotionally mature, she's emotionally intelligent, she knows how to handle her home responsibility, but she has no regard for spiritual things, she doesn't read the Bible, she's not consistent, she doesn't even think it's important. Then you're spiritually immature. You see what I'm saying? So at what point can I say that an individual is mature enough for marriage? My opinion is that you need to demonstrate a level of maturity in every aspect if you want to be considered mature. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that you need to be fully mature in every area. That's not what I'm saying. Everybody has some part of their life that they have not fully be able to master. Like financial maturity is another one as well. A lot of grown people don't know how to manage their funds. A lot of grown people don't know how to they don't know anything about conflict resolution. So I'm not saying that you have to be perfect, but I do believe that if you're talking about maturity, it cannot just be because you can handle your responsibility in one aspect of your life, because you're always serious, you don't laugh at children's jokes, you're mature. I don't think that's a good definition. So it's important that when you meet your potential partner, that you discuss maturity in every aspect of life, because you will find that certain situations turn grown individuals into children very easily. So I think that's a discussion that needs to be had. All right, that's just my 2 cents. All right, let's continue.
Experience other people first. Now, I know what you're thinking. Did you really have people say this? A lot of them didn't come right out and say it. Maybe some of my army buddies, but there were a lot of people that might have suggested that going out there and having a couple of sexual conquests might be beneficial. That way I could know what I actually liked. Because after all, how could you know what you really liked if you hadn't run the gauntlet of cheap and meaningless sex with a bunch of people you weren't really interested in? Now, again, they want to come right out and say that, but that had been their experience. Presumably, they thought they knew what they wanted because they had a whole lot of what they didn't want. I know that there are going to be plenty of people responding to this telling me that I'm a prude or a Puritan, and they're glad that approach worked for me, but that's not the case for everyone. And honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care. I think you're wrong. Because the idea that you need to play the field so you can know what it's like or determine if you're sexually compatible, I think is on its face intellectually absurd. Now, let me give you a story to illustrate this point. Because when I was a young specialist in the 82nd Airborne Division, I actually had a sergeant tell me that I had made a mistake getting married so young, because didn't I know that studies had shown that married couples were actually happier if they had had some more experience, by that I mean sexual partners, before they got married. Now, first of all, I don't know what study that came from, but you should probably trash it instantly, because anyone who has really looked at this issue isn't going to tell you that racking up a body count of randos is going to facilitate greater intimacy in your relationship. But just to hammer the point home, I remember looking back at him and saying, well, Sergeant, if that's true, then what you're telling me is that when you and your wife are being intimate and your wife does something that you really like, you think to yourself, boy, I should really send a thank you note to whatever random dude taught her how to do that. Is that how you feel? I'm sure it doesn't come as much of a shock that when his sage advice on marital bliss was repeated back to him in those terms, he didn't like it very much. In fact, I believe the phrase he used was, "That's effed up, Freitas." To which I responded, well, Sergeant, if you don't like it, don't make stupid claims that are so easily refuted by simply asking you a simple question on how you would feel about that. Because the idea that what a guy actually wants in a wife is someone that has been through a bunch of guys other than him is on its face ridiculous. But it's the same thing when you actually ask women. The idea that what a good woman really wants is some Casanova that has spent a good portion of his life running through everything that walked in the club is a fairy tale made by crappy men for other crappy men. A woman in a loving relationship with a guy who didn't do that is a woman that doesn't feel compared to a number of faceless women every time her husband closes his eyes. In a world where women see sex not just as a physical act, but as a heavily emotional and vulnerable one, knowing that her husband is hers and hers alone is an incredible advantage in your marriage, not a drawback. Now, finally, there were some people that said,
yeah, that's a big point, and the Bible definitely supports that heavily. It is true that a lot of individuals claim that the more experience, the better. Of course, I like I said, I agree with everything he said on that point. The question is, at what cost? Now that you've experienced and you know exactly what you want and what you don't want, at what cost? Have you been able to handle the all of the repercussions that came with having such a high body count, that kind of thing? And yeah, I'm sure, as he said as well, that there are some success stories, but I don't think the exception should be the rule. It should definitely be preserved until marriage. And especially given the Christian context of my audience, the Bible is abundantly clear on that. It is better that way. It will always be better that way. And there's no instance where it will not be that way. If it perhaps you are married right now and you're not being satisfied and you wish that you had experimented first so that you know what you want, what you don't want, but you literally have someone that you can experiment with. You can literally learn what you like and what you don't like with someone that has not experienced anyone either. There is and he said that as well, there is a safety, a sense of security that comes with that. So yeah, it's not worth it. It is not worth it. Yeah.
Well, the real problem here, Nick, is that you need to live some life. You need to get out there, have some experiences, have some adventures before you settle down. I always thought about that, right? Before you settle down. It's not hard to see why the people giving you this advice are usually not very happy in their own marriages. And quite frankly, they probably shouldn't be giving a whole lot of advice to others.
Yeah.
Because the mentality that marriage is the end of the adventure instead of the beginning of it is probably a huge problem in their relationship. In the 24 years I have been married to my wife, we have dealt with a lot of difficulties. Combat deployments, moving 12 times, the global pandemic, losing a job unexpectedly, having our house broken into and our identity stolen. The first 10 years of marriage, I was gone for 5 of them because of the military. All of these things are incredibly stressful on a marriage. But we've also watched the birth of our 3 children. We've ran for office together. We've started a business together. We got to see the look on our children's face the first time they saw Disneyland. We have talked each other into dogs and then kittens and then chickens and then goats. And if I'm being honest, there's probably a lot of other livestock on the way at some point. But the point is that we've dreamed together, we've cried together, we have failed together, and we have triumphed together.
Yeah, I think that's a big point, and I should have said that earlier when he said that you're too poor. Yeah, it's definitely better to grow with someone than to accumulate all the wealth and then get someone. There's a I'm not saying that it's bound to feel that way, but there's definitely an insecurity that lingers in your mind as a man or woman. You have accumulated all your wealth and someone comes into your life. It's really easy to think that you're here because of that, or you want half of that. That kind of thing. It's better to grow together, share the experiences together, suffer together. It's definitely, I think it again, I'm not married. I have no proof of that. I'm just saying it seems to be better that way, to grow together, as opposed to accumulating everything first and then finding someone. So, yeah.
To the point where I remember someone a while back asking me where my hometown was, where my home was. And I told them with absolute conviction that it's wherever Tina is. Because I never doubted that there was going to be adventures in life and there was going to be difficulties in life. And quite frankly, that's why I wanted to marry her, and that's why I couldn't wait to marry her. Because I couldn't imagine experiencing those things without her. I can't imagine how much time I would have lost and how many experiences would have been cheapened because she wouldn't have been there. Marriage was definitely not the end of the adventure for me. It's the start of it. And it's been ongoing ever since. So, if you are a young person that wants to get married, there are some things that you should do relatively soon in the process. As soon as you start to think it's even a possibility, And it should always begin with having very honest conversations about important things way before you get emotionally connected. Now, there will be some people that say that can wait. You let the
Yeah, that's a big point, eh? Usually you find that in dating circles, you meet together, you spend time together, and because the time that you spent together was really good, you spend more time together, and the intelligent conversation has not started yet. We're just having good time, enjoying our company, and as a result of the constant company and the good feelings that come from that good company, of course the emotions are running high, and we become connected. You begin to like and love the individual. The intelligent conversations have not happened yet, and that's usually what happens, that you postpone the real conversations in the ecstasy of novelty, and by the time you check yourself, you're stuck. And that even if the guy, even if the girl has like bright red waving flags, you feel like you could change them, they'll improve, it's not that bad, I don't think I can do better than that guy or that girl anyway, and that just creates a recipe for disaster. So yeah, you see, having the intelligent conversations even before you become emotionally attached, that's highly recommended. I do agree with that. Let me I'm smiling because I'm thinking of two individuals who I've spoken to about this. This is why the Bible, you find that the Bible usually brings up arranged marriages, and I am in no way approving arranged child marriages. The Bible does not support that, neither do I. I'm referring to arranged marriages in the sense that parents would suggest partners for their children. Notice I use the word suggest, so it is arranged, not forced. And the reason why parents had that prerogative in Bible times is because the parents would be able to handle, they would be able to navigate the values of their children and the values of other individuals without the emotional connection even beginning in the first place. So that's something that happened then. And another thing too is arranged marriages were very successful in Bible times as well, because of the how do I say this? Basically I'm saying that there was, I don't know, I guess I can't even say that. It's not that they were more moral, but there was never a thought of a way out. That's my point. I don't think, come to think of it, I don't think there's any mention in the Bible of divorce. I mean, there was a law for it in Leviticus, but I literally cannot recall anybody ending a relationship with a wife or a husband. I'm not gonna say that that's the case, but it's rare, which is why I can't remember. So I think that that's another reason why it worked then. Someone might argue patriarchal culture. The women had no choice; they had to survive. They had to reproduce, so they had to find a man. So they would have survived anything just to have a man. I would disagree with that, because in that same patriarchal culture that you're arguing about, the fathers took care of their daughters, so they did not even have to leave just because a man chose them. So that's definitely not the case here. It's just that it seems that there was this universal ethic of, I have found you, you are mine, and we are stuck together for life to experience everything. Based on the wisdom of my parents, you seem to be a perfect fit for me, and we can work this out. That kind of thing. But that's a whole other topic by itself. I know a few individuals that would probably handle this topic better than I would, right? Anyway, let's continue. We're almost done.
Relationship develop. I'm telling you right now, there will be some people that say that can wait. You let the relationship develop. I'm telling you right now, if you really care about someone, don't waste their time. Don't play with their heart, and don't tolerate other people doing the same thing to you. If this isn't someone that you can actually conceive of yourself being married to, then don't create a bunch of cheapened experiences, which is going to adversely affect the real experiences that you want to have with the woman that you love. Tina and I spent time discussing things that actually mattered very early on. We talked about faith. We talked about worldview. We talked about concepts of right and wrong, problem solving. We talked about the ideas about our roles and responsibilities of a wife and a husband. Who should be the primary breadwinner? Did she want to work outside the home? What would that look like when we had kids? By the way, how many kids do you want to have? How do we plan to raise them, discipline them, encourage them?
Yeah, and this is another thing too. All the questions you asked are real, serious, germane, important questions. And here's something that usually comes up. But having these conversations even before liking each other, isn't that too fast? Aren't you coming off too strong? This is the first time I'm meeting you, the second time I'm meeting you, and we're already discussing how many kids you want to have. You find that happening, that people are afraid of having these conversations because it comes across as too strong. That step number one, are you interested in marriage or not? Please let me know from now. But what I want us to understand is this has nothing to do with coming on strong. The point is that you have boundaries, and even before you catch feelings, you want to ensure that the individual that you are considering understands and respects these boundaries. So that's why these discussions are important to have. And what I would say is have it in a theoretical way. Don't have it in a planning way, like we already have the name for the child. That's not my point. My point is to have it in a theoretical way, that the same way you asking me what's my favorite color and what's my favorite food, I'm saying that part of all of these introductory conversations, you should know my values as well. You should know my boundaries as well. You should know my future plans as well. That's a part of the small talk conversation. So this is not about coming on too strong. First conversation, you talk about marriage. No, it's about learning about the individual that you are at least attracted to. So that's really, really important. So don't shy away from these difficult conversations.
We discussed our views on decision making. We talked about our pet peeves. And in all of these discussions, we chose to be open and honest with one another about what we wanted, because there was only two possible outcomes from these conversations. We were either going to learn that we had very different ideas about the world and the roles that we were going to play in it, and therefore marriage was not a possibility. Or we were going to find out that the natural attraction that we had for one another rested on something strong enough to build a marriage. Now, again, some people will tell you it's fine to wait to ask these questions till after you're married, and I will tell you right now that's a huge problem, because a lot of those people seem to think that the marriage is the wedding.
Yeah, and that's another big point by itself. Before I get to that big point, the marriage being the wedding, is counseling sessions, marital counseling sessions. I find that the purpose of marriage counseling sessions has been lost. It does not do justice to preparing a couple for marriage. Boy, you might be asking how I even know what I know about that. That you're right. I've not had any marriage counseling sessions myself, but I know enough people who are married who have shared their experiences. So that's what I'm sharing. And it's too shallow. A lot of the times it's the conversation it's not about the difficult conversations. That's my point. It's about compatibilities and a questionnaire, that kind of thing, as opposed to dealing with the real issues, that childhood trauma and how that could affect your marriage, and the having two completely different levels of sex drives and how that could affect the marriage, and that kind how to manage the finances and so on and so forth. Sometimes you find that doesn't take place. It's just and honestly, I don't think it's on the counselor's end. I think it's actually on the couple's end sometimes, that they just do it because it's kind of mandatory to do before you get married. So let's just get this over with. Let's just agree with everything that he has to say and then get married and finish with that. But a lot of times, I think the fault is actually more on the couples, that they don't divulge enough information for the counselor to make an informed decision. and the conversations should have taken place even before the counseling session. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that as well. The marriage being the wedding is another big point. The focus is how well the event goes out as opposed to the marriage itself. I know a lot of individuals, not a lot, but I know a few individuals who had like beautiful marriages that, you know, that should have been in 8K, like 4K, 8K. But the marriage is horrible. They're unhappy, you know. I know a few individuals like that. So yeah, the marriage is not the wedding. Stop that. Why are you focusing so much on that? There's so much more to do after. The wedding is one day. In fact, you should be spending more money on the honeymoon than the wedding. What you doing? Anyway, I have no experience. I can't say much.
But it isn't. It's everything that happens afterward. And just as a happy marriage can be one of the best things that you will ever experience, a bad one, I can only imagine, feels like a prison. So ask the important questions up front. So, am I telling you to get married young? Not necessarily. I am saying that marriage is more about maturity than it is age. I am saying that you probably shouldn't take too much advice from people unhappy in their own marriage, because if their advice worked, well then, presumably, it would have worked for them. And what I am saying is when you find someone that you truly love and
sorry, I don't agree with that point. Some individuals are unhappy in marriage and they give advice, but you shouldn't take the advice because they're unhappy in their own marriage. I do agree with that. I don't agree with that. The reason why is some individuals learn the lesson and it's too late to make the change. So looking back, this is the change that they would have made. This is the advice that they give. I don't think I would judge advice based on someone's current experience. Advice is advice. I don't think that's fair either. A lot of people make mistakes, and these are the individuals that give the best advice because they made the mistake. So yeah, I don't agree with that small statement there. But there is value to it. Some individuals just don't know what they're saying, and they don't even apply what they're recommending. So I do agree, but let's look at both sides.
Admire, and they feel the same. And what I am saying is when you find someone that you truly love and admire and they feel the same about you, to hold off getting married so you can engage in a bunch of meaningless trysts or side quests is to not only delay the real adventure that you could be having with the person that you love, you actually risk losing it altogether when he or she decides that they don't want to wait for you to grow up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have nothing to say on that. Excellent video. Lovely. I like the values that he shared in his life experience, and yeah, it's lovely. And you know, I always appreciate that. I like the biblical relevance of his point. I don't know if he is a Christian for that matter, but I love the fact that God that God is able to inculcate his values in life experiences. I don't even think he knows that most of what he said can be found and supported by the Bible. And this is another thing I like to, and this is another important point, because what that does imply then that the Bible is not some made up group of restrictions for religious people. No, the Bible is a rule book for life, for everybody. And if individuals can learn that after making the mistakes, after living the life, after, you know, based on how they were raised, they were able to make the biblical choices without knowing that these were biblical choices, and they can reap the benefits. Why is it that those who do have the Bible question it? That bothers me. There are individuals who don't know the Bible, they disobeyed the Bible, they suffer the consequence. There are people that don't know the Bible, they follow it unknowingly, and they reap the benefits. And individuals who have the Bible question it. That makes no sense to me. Let us follow the instructions that God has given in his word, because it's for our good. That's the whole point of the word of God. It's for our good. All right. So yeah, good video. Thank you for that. or whoever sent it. I appreciate it. And that's it. Until the next video, TREV Ministries, over and out.